Hi YouTube, Dingle here. Right, I want to talk to you today about how to open up the fretboard. If like me you look all over YouTube for useful guitar tips and hints, you may or may not have noticed that there are a lot of people out there these days that are teaching using numbers to describe where you should play on the fretboard. I personally don't think that using numbers and set memorized patterns or shapes really opens up the fretboard the way you could do. So what I want to try and emphasize to you today is that you really should try and learn your fretboard in terms of notes, the names of each and every note on every fret, on every string, from your nut all the way up to however many frets you've got on your guitar. For instance, if you've learnt your fretboard just as a series of numbers, memorized shapes or scale or mode patterns without actually knowing what notes you're playing and why you're playing those notes, then you wouldn't know why what I just played there is in the key of E major. Okay, so just knowing that is the 9th fret, that is the 11th, that's the 12th. Doesn't really tell you why that is a C sharp minor scale. It also doesn't tell you that that C sharp minor scale is the relative minor scale to E major. So having complete freedom on the fretboard is knowing all of the notes on every fret on each and every string, and then memorizing the notes of all of your major scales, all of the modes within those major scales, and then altered scales such as harmonic minor, and each of the modes within those altered scales. Think of the fretboard in terms of numbers. I'm not the greatest qualified guitar teacher in the world, but I do try and emphasize and stress to my students that they should know all of the notes and that they should memorize the notes of the scales that they're learning rather than memorizing numbers and fixed memorized patterns or shapes, because by doing that kind of locks you in to certain shapes and you kind of miss out on all sorts of things that you could do on the fretboard if you could just instantly visualize it as notes and then suss out where the intervals in your scales are and just go wherever you want. Okay, just knowing a group of numbers or a fixed scale pattern on a fretboard won't tell you why, for instance. Won't tell you why. What I just played there was E mixolydian. Numbers won't tell you that. Numbers won't tell you why. Numbers won't tell you why that was E dominant Phrygian. Is E minor. Quite a few of my students get kind of pretty daunted by the prospect of having to learn a load of notes all over this fretboard with 21 or 22 or 24 frets and 6 strings. But I explain it like this, which I think makes it a lot less daunting. If you think about how many letters are in the alphabet, and everybody knows the alphabet, there are 26 letters in it. How many words do you know? Probably thousands. How many combinations of those words do you know in your vocabulary? How many sentences could you possibly make up? Thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions? I don't know the maths on it, but it's a lot. There are 11 different notes on this instrument. That's all. After that they all repeat themselves in various places on the neck. And it's definitely worth the effort. It'll certainly open up the fretboard a whole lot more than just learning memorised shapes and playing by numbers. I'm just going to give you an example now of why I believe that ultimately learning your fretboard just as a series of numbers is ultimately futile, a futile exercise. So for instance, if you learn this lick as just a very simple little hammer on pull off lick, if you learn that lick as 7, 9, 10 and pull off and hammer on where applicable, what about if you play it there? That's not 7, 9 and 10, is it? That's 12, 14 and 15. But if you learn that that's B, that that's C sharp, and that that is D, and you hear those notes, and you hear them again somewhere else, and they sound identical, then that is B, and that is C sharp, and that is D. And the same if we move it onto a different string. That's B, that's C sharp, and that's D. That's the same lick there. It's the same notes. It's the same numbers even. Not if we play it there. Or there. So I hope that kind of demonstrates ultimately the futility of just memorising your fretboard as numbers and memorising sort of fixed scale patterns and fixed shapes, and hopefully it'll encourage you and inspire you to go away and learn your fretboard, learn all the notes on the fretboard, and then you can, to do this, there are millions of places on the internet you can find a chart or a diagram of the fretboard telling you what each and every note is. But really you only need to know your notational alphabet. So that's E, that's F, that's F sharp, G, G sharp, A, B flat, B, C, C sharp, D, E flat, and then guess what? It repeats itself all over again. You have to remember 11 notes. The trick is remembering where they are. So that's E, that's E, that's E, that's E, another E there, another E there, there's an E there, there's one there, there's one there, there's one there, and so on. So take each and every note, find each place on the fretboard where that note is, and just try and remember it. Try doing exercise where you kind of go. Remember all those positions where E occurs. And then choose another note and do it that way. It's time consuming, you might find it a little bit boring, but trust me, it's worth it. Because once you're able to look at your fretboard and just see notes on each and every fret, then and you know what notes occur in any given key. So if somebody says, right, I'm playing in E major, if you're familiar with what notes are in the key of E major, they are A, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, E sharp, and back to E again. So if you have that scale memorized and you know where that group of notes occurs on the guitar, where to find them all, somebody can play you an E major chord progression, and you are now free to play wherever you want because you know exactly where the notes are. Throw a little D in there, a little cheeky D there to mix a lid in it up a little bit. It's only when you know those notes, you know those scales, you know what's in them, you know where to find it all on the fretboard, that you have that freedom to be able to do that without being locked in particular scale positions and just remembering, you know, 5, 7, 8, 5, 7, 8, 5, 7 and so on. Right, I hope that was useful to you. Now go away and learn it.